talking about gluten and liver disease, liver damage, but we're going to throw in a kind of a bonus talk for many of you. We're going to talk about the gallbladder as well, because the gallbladder and the liver are quite intrinsic organs, meaning the liver is part of the gallbladder, right? And secretion of bile is very important. A lot of people don't realize this is one of the most common surgeries in the United States, is having the gallbladder removed, oftentimes referred to as a cholecystectomy. And we're going to be talking about, can gluten contribute to these problems, and can these problems make a comeback? In essence, can we heal? Is the damage too far gone? Does it get too late to actually heal? And hey, those of you who are new to this information, welcome to Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. And those of you who are veterans of this information, thanks and welcome back. And remember, as always, part of our mission, remember the mission at drpeterosborne.com and the mission at glutenfreesociety.org is to reach 100 million chronically sick people. So I want you guys to help me take that mission on. And the only way I can do it is if you share this information with somebody who needs it. So if right now, if you know somebody with liver disease, if you know somebody who's had a gallbladder surgery or a cholecystectomy, if you know somebody who's struggling with an autoimmune hepatitis diagnosis, please share this information with them right now. Just share this to their feed, type their name into the feed below, and let's get the information into their hands so they can get benefit too. Again, I can't reach 100 million people without you guys, so thanks for your help. So again, tonight we're talking about gluten. Can it damage? Can it cause liver damage, and can it cause gallbladder damage? So let's talk about the answer, which is absolutely yes, it can. So, the obvious answer is yes. But why is the bigger question, because knowing that it can without knowing why can be somewhat of a fruitless piece of information. So what do we want to understand about how gluten can cause this damage? So there are a couple different mechanisms. Number one is nutritional deficit. One of the side effects of gluten sensitivity is malnourishment. So nutritional deficit or deficiency is one, and we'll talk about each one of these in turn. But then we also have, beyond nutritional deficit, we can have directly an autoimmune response to the organ itself. Meaning that gluten can induce an autoimmune response against the liver itself, creating an autoimmune response. And then there's another way that this can happen as well. And by the way, these have all been researched pretty well. These have all been studied pretty well, these mechanisms. So it's important that you understand what they are, because that's going to give you the tools that you need, right, to have an intelligent conversation, hopefully with your doctor, who's going to be more open-minded to this once you go in and talk to them. But the third is the inflammatory damage. And we'll just kind of say it like this: inflammatory toxic buildup. Because gluten can create an inflammatory damage that can lead to toxic buildup of byproducts as your body is trying to put out the fire, and those can actually create collateral damage to the organs themselves. So let's kind of go through each one in turn. Nutritional deficiencies. There are some really critical nutrients that are important for the function of the liver and the gallbladder. So if you're gluten sensitive and you've got nutritional deficit as a result of the damage gluten causes to your GI tract, to your pancreas, to your ability to basically absorb nutrients from the GI tract, one of the big ones that we can see here is vitamin B12. And so vitamin B12, a lot of people don't realize this, but vitamin B12 is necessary to produce a substance called choline. Now, choline is a B vitamin-like substance that helps prevent fatty liver buildup. So it prevents fat from storing. We'll just say prevents fatty liver. It's shorter to write that. So B12 is necessary to make choline, which prevents fatty liver. Now understand that B12 is absorbed. You've got to have, there are a couple different mechanisms here at play. I'm going to draw that on the board for you as well. We're going to run out of room again. In the stomach, this is the stomach, we have cells lining the stomach. They're called parietal cells, and they secrete acid, and they secrete another substance called intrinsic factor. We'll abbreviate that with IF. That's intrinsic factor. Now what happens is gluten can actually damage these cells, Gluten can also cause an autoimmune reaction that leads to your immune system damaging these cells. So there's more ways than one for this to happen. As a matter of fact, if you suspect this, your doctor can run a test called a parietal cell antibody test and measure whether this is happening, whether or not your immune system is damaging your stomach cells that make acid an intrinsic factor. Why is that important? Because these two nutrients, or these two substances rather, they help you to bind vitamin B12. So they actually pick up vitamin B12 and they taxicab it down your small intestine, where it's then absorbed in the distal ileum, where it's absorbed, which is the latter part of your small intestine. It's absorbed into your bloodstream, and without these two substances, you don't absorb vitamin B12 very well. And if you don't have adequate vitamin B12, again, that comes back to choline, and choline helps prevent excessive fatty storage in the liver, so it helps to modulate fat metabolism in the liver. And if your choline levels are too low, you can actually develop a fatty liver because of that. And again, vitamin B12 is necessary to produce that choline. So we've got, again, one step, nutritional deficiency, creating a secondary deficiency, creating a fatty liver process, which is actually quite common. When we see people with fatty liver diagnoses in our office, this is almost, well, not always the case, but it is very, very commonly the case. When we actually start testing their B12 levels, we start testing their choline levels, we will see these issues popping up very, very frequently. So important that you understand that, because if you're struggling with a fatty liver and you've just been told, look, you're story time. So I've actually had patients come in and they were literally accused of being alcoholics because they had fatty liver disease, even though they didn't even drink. And the doctors didn't believe them, so they accused them of being alcoholics. Now, if that's happened to you and you're listening tonight, give me an angry face, right? Just hit the angry face right now. We can get angry about it. But the doctor accused them of being an alcoholic, or called them liars, because they had damage to their liver that was basically calculated on a blood test, even though the person was not an alcoholic. So we want to understand that many people actually get accused of lying about this, because alcohol is one of the things that can do this too. In certain medications, if you're on more than 3 or 4 medications, and those medications are all processed by the liver through the liver, you can overwhelm your liver with too many medications, and that can also create this issue. So again, it doesn't just have to be gluten. I want to be clear about that too. Gluten definitely can create it in these different ways that we've got here. Where did my number 3 go? It looks like, yeah, here it is. We just didn't put a number on it. Let's put a number on it and keep organized. Gluten can cause the problem through these 3 ways, but multiple medication use can cause this problem. Alcohol can certainly cause this problem. Other environmental chemicals like mold toxicity can cause this problem. Yeast overgrowth can cause this problem. So let's be clear, we're not trying to put gluten in the catch-all for the only reason that people can develop an autoimmune issue or an autoimmune disease, but it's of the liver. But it's very important that you understand that it's multifactorial. So you've got things that should be tested for. B12 deficiency, choline deficiency certainly are things that can be tested for. Other things that can affect the function from an absorptive standpoint, one of the things, remember I said over here that acid is affected? Well, this acid being low or being affected, so when the acid secreting cells of the stomach are being affected, that can create a B12 issue, that can create a protein issue. That can create a vitamin B2 issue. It can create a chromium issue. It can create a calcium and a magnesium issue. It can create an iron deficiency issue. So there's a lot of different nutrients that are acid dependent, meaning in order for your body to be able to properly absorb them, you have to have adequate acid production by the stomach, and if you don't, these are possible side effects of what can happen. Now, if we just take this small list of things and we look, okay, protein, why is that important? Because protein produces a substance called glutathione, which is what the liver uses to detoxify. So if you're not getting adequate protein absorption, and many people, especially with celiac disease, have protein absorption problems, and they start to waste, they actually start to experience muscle wasting. Their liver's not getting adequate protein to produce glutathione, which is, again, the master detoxifier. It's the predominant protein that helps the liver take out the trash. So if your glutathione levels are too low, you can run into some major issues. And that, again, in order to get glutathione, we got to get protein. There's actually 3 amino acids that make your glutathione. Methionine, glutamine is the other one, and cysteine is the third. So if you've heard those amino acids before, glutamine, methionine, and cysteine all together form the tripeptide, tri meaning three, peptide meaning protein. This is a 3 amino acid sequence protein basically designed to help your liver detoxify. So you need adequate protein to be able to produce this. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you come back around to liver damage. Glutathione deficiency itself can create a liver damage issue. So again, protein. Then we have B2. One of the things that B2 does is it regenerates glutathione. So one of its functions is it serves as an indirect antioxidant. By kind of like, think of glutathione as a cell phone, think of vitamin B2 as the charger, right? And so when you take away the charger, the cell phone only has so much power and then it drains. Well, B2 is the connection between the cell phone and the wall outlet, right? So it recharges that glutathione. So without B2, you get deficiencies of glutathione. Chromium regulates blood sugar, one of its predominant functions, and when you have blood sugar fluctuations, that puts more stress and pressure on the liver. That excessive insulin and that excessive sugar can put, again, more stress and pressure on the liver. And then calcium and magnesium and iron, these are necessary for, well, magnesium is necessary for about 300 different functions, but some of those functions have to do with detoxification and the proper methylation. And those of you probably have heard of methylation is a form of detoxification. So again, it helps relieve the burden or the burden that the liver has on detoxification. And then of course iron deficiency causes an anemia which reduces oxygen capacity to the liver, and that in and of itself can lead to kind of the liver starving, right? Starving of oxygen, not being able to do what it needs to do its job. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below, and as always, thanks for tuning in.